All right, let's start. So, progressive web apps, the future of the web. Like, very big statement. But first, who am I? I'm Moises Gonzalez. I'm a web developer from Venezuela. I started in France. I've been in Europe a while. I worked in Amsterdam, Barcelona, right now in Munich. And since December, I'm part of the charter team here in Flixbus. So let's get started already. The world goes mobile, OK? I mean, everybody has a smartphone, but something very interesting is happening right now. 2018 is a year where there's more people visiting websites on their phones than on desktop. This is really important because there is a big problem with this. Conversion rates are super low for smartphones. They're like 1%, but on desktop is 4%. So people are buying 4 times less stuff on mobiles than on desktop. I started wondering why was this happening. Why isn't people buying stuff on their phones? At first I thought, yeah, it's millennials, they're just on their phones, they're not buying stuff, they're destroying capitalism. But then I started looking deeper. And there's someone else to blame. Websites themselves are to blame because the average web app experience is really poor for mobile. Why? Because most websites are optimized for desktop. Why? Because we develop, we test, and we prioritize desktop over everything else because that's what brings the most money. Even those who claim to be mobile first. Mobile users are less patient. And to make things worse, websites are a lot slower on smartphones. And half of the visits are likely to be abandoned to a website if pages take more than 3 seconds to load. Doesn't sound like too much, like 3 seconds is nothing. But imagine yourself being in front of a screen, looking at a white page for 3 seconds. At one point, it gets really annoying, and you want to walk away. But not every mobile experience is poor, right? Because mobile browser is here, conversion rate is super low, desktop is here for like 100 times bigger, but apps. Something is happening with apps that make them perform even better than desktop. Let's see what. What makes native apps so awesome? I made a quick list. It's going to be pretty obvious to most of people, but let's look at it just to have it in mind. In native apps, most of bullshit content is removed. They go straight to the point. They just focus on what people want to achieve and make it accessible. They're super fast. They load in a few seconds. You can reach them from their home screen. You can install them. They're easy to use. Maybe it's a result of the first point. They're offline accessible. They have push notifications and good UX practices by default. Why? Because Android and iOS, they give you some components that you can reuse. So it makes it really easy to develop for mobile. But not everything is great on native. Native can also suck a little bit. OK, sometimes. The problem with native apps is that they're built in poorly accessible coding languages. So Java, some kind of Java. You have Android. And you have the Android SDKs, you have Swift C. It's really difficult. You have more than one code base. You might think it's only iOS and Android, but imagine that there's people, there's teams somewhere supporting Windows apps. They just take a lot of time to build, and of course, all of this makes it really expensive because you need 3 teams for 3 apps that basically need to do the same thing. Another bad thing about native is their discoverability. You might think that people just go into the App Store and they look for an app, but there's a lot of happening before that. Usually people just Google what they want, let's say Flixbus. They go to the website, they see this thing on top, they click install, they download it, they open it, and then they can finally search again. But at this point, you already forgot what you wanted to search. And remember that I said before, like 3 seconds was already too much. From here to here, there's around 5 minutes. That's way too much. But maybe there is something better. there is something better. And that's why I'm going to talk to you about progressive web apps today. Yeah. So I wanted to know what progressive web apps were. And it was really difficult. This is what I found on Wikipedia. Progressive web apps are applications that are regular web pages or websites. And I thought, OK, thanks Wikipedia. But wait, there's another paragraph. OK, they are regular web pages or websites, but can appear to the user like traditional applications or native mobile applications. We can make that simpler, of course. Regular web pages or websites, but can appear to the user like mobile applications. But if I had to explain it with my own words and making it simpler, I would just say it's just an optimized website. But there's another question rising. You can optimize a website all you want, but at which point does a website become a progressive web app? There's a tool for this. It's called Lighthouse. And to me, it is the best way to define whether a website is a progressive web app or not. It looks like this. It lives on the browser. There's a little tab here called Audits. You can run an audit. And it's going to give you a score between like 1 and 100. And if it's between 80 and 100, then your website is a progressive web app. When I was doing research, I wanted to know why it was so trendy right now. And I had to take a screenshot because the results were really interesting. They will replace native. What they mean, they are the future of the web. They matter for retail, the future of web development, etc. But then I started doing a little bit more research, and I realized that the future is fucking now. Yeah. Why? Because 2018 is the year where progressive web apps are supported on every major browser, like 6 out of 6. Edge, even Edge, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. And there's already many success stories from a lot of companies who are building this, and for them it just really works. But OK, let's see why progressive web apps are so cool. Remember why native apps are cool? Well, they're super fast, they're reachable from home screen, easy to use, offline accessible, and have no push notifications. Progressive web apps have all of these, everything. And I'm still talking about websites. So they are websites who have push notifications, offline accessible, and they're reachable from your home screen. To me, it still sounds weird, but that's the way it is. But the only thing we don't have is good UX practices by default. We have to work on it because it's the web. Everything's from scratch most of the time. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm still talking about websites. So we have all the pros from the web. They're built on easy-peasy coding languages. I think everyone knows HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You have one code base for all platforms. And that means, of course, one team who builds one website who can reach iOS, Android, and Windows phones. You don't have to deal with the App Store or the Play Store. I remember at my first job, they used to do a lot of apps all the time. And whenever they wanted to publish something on the App Store, it took like a week because they had to get approval. It had to be reviewed. It was really annoying. And with progressive web apps, you just deploy, and that's it. You can do fast prototype modifications and releases. And they're super cheap, or at least more accessible, because you only work with one team building to multiple platforms. There's a small demo that I found. I just want to get, like, on the left, you will see a progressive web app being installed, and on the right, a native app. And this is how it looks like. So it's just a link that goes to a website. On iOS, you have a little menu on the bottom, and you have Add to Home Screen. You can change the name if you want, but that's it. Then it's already in your home screen. And you have an app that's installed. You can reach from your home screen. Sometimes they can be accessible offline. You have to work on it. But the native app is still downloading. I could already be buying coffee right now, but no. The native app doesn't let me. And you might think that 30 seconds, 1 minute doesn't feel like too much, but imagine you're in a hurry, you're in a line, and you really want to buy coffee. So I think the rest of the video just wants to show how similar the performance is in progressive web apps and native. I mean, it tries to show that progressive is better, but it's just a matter of a few seconds. So I wouldn't say it's like a huge difference. But it's amazing to think that web can have performance so similar to native already. OK, let's continue. Another amazing thing about native apps, progressive web apps, is their discoverability, because this is how it looks like. You just Google it, you go to the website, and that's it. You stop here. And every millisecond counts. When the page loads in like 10 seconds, there's a bounce rate increase of 123%. And consider the 30 seconds we just saw when you're installing a native app. You just lose patience and probably walk away. But it's not only about speed. Websites are also, most of the time, full of noise. Users are not considered during conception and development. And something that is frustrating is that a lot of best practices feel counterintuitive. Why? Because let's say you're like you want to raise the amount of people who sign up to your newsletter. The immediate reaction is to just say, I'm going to put a pop-up window on the homepage. That's the first thing that everyone sees. And they have no choice but to sign up. But they forget that they can also leave the website. And usually the best place to ask people to do something, sign up for a newsletter or anything, is at the end of a task. The people making decisions rarely go into the world of the user. They just conceptualize everything in a small room between 3 people and make huge decisions for everyone. But what I usually like to do is imagine websites like a physical store. And when you go to a physical shop, where are the fidelity cards? When you buy something at checkout, right? Because you already made a purchase, you already engaged with a product. But in a nutshell, most websites are simply not user-centered. The worst way to design a website is to have 5 smart people in a room drinking lattes, because they just lose a sense of reality and they start forgetting who they are building the website for. That's why we need something else in progressive web apps other than a technical side. Progressive web apps and UX, they just go hand in hand. Why? Because websites are like a white canvas with endless possibilities. Nobody actually said this. I wanted to say if somebody noticed. But OK, this can be also really good, right? You can get creative and everything. But it can also be problematic, because poor UX leads to confusion, frustration, even anger. Progressive web apps and UX. Designing for mobile is really difficult. You have so much limited space, 700 pixels, something like that, at tops. And there's so much you want to include, so many functionalities. And when you do a progressive web app, you usually want to rethink the site for mobile, taking all the learnings from native. For example, what do you do when the user is offline? When is the best moment to send notifications? You redesign for mobile. You re-implement, removing all that is necessary. So you know all these media queries on CSS? To apply this for desktop and mobile, you just take desktop. You just take mobile and throw away desktop. So you make the files a lot smaller. Ideally, you need to restart the website from scratch, just doing mobile. And rediscover the user journey. Notice that I say discover and not create, because there's already a user journey. We just need to discover it together with users. I said before that there's a lot of success stories about progressive web apps. Companies like Uber, AliExpress, Twitter, they're all doing progressive web apps, and it has worked very good for them. So I'm going to just share a few. AliExpress. 104 increases in conversion rate for new users. 82 increase in iOS conversion rate. This is huge. Twice pages visited per session per user across all browsers, and 74 increase in time spent per session across all browsers. This feels like this right now, but there's one more only. Twitter Lite. I like to call it Twitter without the bullshit. 65 increase in pages per session, 75 increase in tweets sent, and 20% decrease in bounce rate. If you have worked with these metrics, bounce rate and pages per session, you know that these metrics are huge. And the list just goes on and on. We have 300% increase in revenue, and Tinder. We'll see Trivago a little bit later because they're pushing this very, very hard. But OK, let's see a demo first. But first, I have a question for everyone. You can raise your hand or whatever, or think about it. So how many people here have used a progressive web app? OK, for the ones who haven't, prepare for the biggest plot twist ever. If you have visited the Summit website, our conference website, then you have used a progressive web app. How do I know? Because the score here is 91. Ignore the 38. Ignore. And you can add the progressive web app to your home screen. And I'm going to show how I did it. This is just me on my phone. I go to Chrome, and I just visit the URL. It was summit.conf.flix.tech. OK. And what I'm going to show only happens in Chrome. And look at the bottom of the phone. Here, there's going to be something that shows up, this little window, add to home screen. That is a little window that appears if your website is a progressive web app on Chrome, if it passes the Lighthouse test, if it's between 80 and 100. And it's just going to let the user install the app. Then you open it, and it looks like this. And you see the navigation bar is gone, because now it's an app or something like that. And OK, I'm just going to leave the app right now, and it's here on my home screen. Google found that progressive web app install banners convert 5 to 6 times more often than native install banners, the one we just saw. And there's a feature for adding to home screen. The next version of Chrome is going to have this in the bottom. And when you tap on it, you will see something appearing, this little window. And maybe someday, we will have something like this in the address bar. And if this ever happens, you can expect progressive web apps to just explode, because it's going to be so visible. I saw this on Slack the other day. Bad user experience at the Viva Tech in Paris. Wi-Fi doesn't work. And I thought, what would be really cool to have in a conference website? I thought maybe we can make the schedule available offline. And I wanted to try it out in the conference website. Here's how it looks. I just go to the app again. I open it. And what I'm going to do next is just that I want to scroll a little bit and wait for the app to be actually installed, to let all the background processes finish. And all these images you see, they need to be seen first so they can be offline accessible. I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi. I turn off my mobile data. And I refresh. I have 0 connection. And I put a little message here. Seems like you're offline. You can still check the schedule of the summit. You can try it out. It doesn't work all the time, but and I can still check the schedule. Everything's fine. So Trivago. Trivago is really good. They saw a 150% increase in progressive web apps added in home screen when they did all of this. 97% increase in clickouts to hotels. And 67% of the people who go offline continue to browse where they left off when they go back online. They saw a little reduction in the amount of people who sign up for email subscriptions because they were now using push notifications. Well, it's not so bad. I think it increases the user experience. And there's even a website. I think it's just the Hall of Fame of progressive web apps. It's called pwa.rocks, and they have a lot. A great example is Google I/O. It's the conference website. It is completely available offline. Looks amazing. And we at Flixbus, we want to raise awareness of this. We made a little channel. It's called PWA Crew. And here we just share knowledge about this. One thing that I know that I didn't talk about is I just focused on why they are important and what they are. I didn't want to go deep into how they work because of time, and it's a bit too soon because there's not so much knowledge about what they are, even for me at the beginning. It was hard to process that they're websites, but that's all they are. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Thank you.